What if I told you that Achashverosh wasn't this silly, overweight king that didn't know what he was doing and having everyone sort of pull things over his head, but was actually very smart, calculated, maybe still overweight? I don't know. Welcome to the Malbim on Esther and another edition of Groovin to the Torah. We're going to go through the introduction of the Malbim, and then we're going to go Perek by Perek, hopefully going through the entire Megillat Esther. And I hope you enjoy. Let's jump on in. So before we even start with Vayimei Achashverosh, the Malbim gives an explanation of what are the two different types of government and leadership. On the one hand, there is I'll translate to the closest thing we could talk about is democracies, which are using a certain boundary that has been set before with a certain set of rules, and a leader just gets elected by the people typically and is going to rule over within the same context of it. And there's also dictators, people that do take as much as they can and do whatever they want without real regard for the people that they're leading. And oftentimes they're not even chosen by those very people. And Achashverosh had this plan, and this is that he both wanted to have the good grace of the people by being an elected official, working within the bounds of the prevailing customs, but also wanted the absolute power of a dictator and the ability to do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, and continue to expand his kingdom. And that's the context, and that's the backdrop in which we start Vayimei Achashverosh, because Hu Achashverosh, Hamolech Mehodu V'Yadku Sheva V'Yasrim U'Me'ah Medina. So in the days of Achashverosh, this is Achashverosh before he was a king. Achashverosh initially was a stable boy. And he did not come from specific wealth. Hu Achashverosh, but he was very strong and very savvy. Hamolech Mehodu V'Yadku, he went and he took over from Hodu and Kush 127 Medinot. That's something that he was able to do. Vayamim hahem, pasuk bet, keshevet hamelech Achashverosh al kisei malchuto, asher b'Shushan habirah. What did he do? He married Vashti, who was a princess, and eventually became queen. And that relationship gave him the legitimacy of being a king through blood. Not his blood, but he's going to try to make people forget that. And so it was in those days that the Hamelech Achashverosh, now all of a sudden he's Hamelech Achashverosh, not Hamelech Hamolech, Hamelech Achashverosh, he points that out. Al Kisei Malchuto Asher b'Shushan habirah. Shushan was not where it initially was. He actually moved the capital city to Shushan. This is all part of his plan of erasing the history to write a new present. And it was made exactly for him. בשנת 3 למלכו עשה משתה לכל שריו ועבדיו חיל פרס ומדי הפרטומים ושרי המדינות לפניו. So in the third year of his rule, this is when he waited a little bit of time as he's pulling off these moves. He's okay, now is the time that I am going to flex my leadership and make myself a dictator as opposed to an elected official kind of a thing. And he waited for 3 years because that's the chazakah. And that's 3 years is a chazakah. That's when he's been there long enough that people know who he is. And he makes a party. The Malbim points out that the party was first of all to Chil Parasu Madai and then the Partumim. The order in which he did that was actually very important because it showed where he's messing with the previous pecking order as he makes himself a new order. Baroto et osher kavod malchuto ve'et yakar tiferet gedulato yamim rabim shmonim u'me'at yom. So this is the next pasuk Dalet. He says that he wanted to show that he had this great, vast wealth. In order, fanav rabim amim lehitparer kemo ish amitparer b'kinyan kaspo v'zeh et osher kavod. He wanted to show that it was as if this was not the country's treasure chest, but it was actually for what he actually brought to the kingdom. It's not something that existed beforehand, it's something that he actually was going to give them. So Yakar Tiferet Gedulato is what we said. That is what he said. Okay. ובמלאות הימים האלו עשה המלך לכל העם הנמצאים בשושן הבירה limigadol v'ad katan mishte shivat yamim b'chatzar ginat bitan hamelech. But then, after this 180-day party, which gave everyone enough time to come, he made a smaller party just for for Shushan. And this is another layer of devious thought, that he made this party just for Shushan, so that even though they're smaller, they are stronger, because that is where his capital city is. And he didn't make a Doviad Katan. It didn't make a difference if you are great or small. Everyone was part of this. In the Chatzar HaMelech, in the actual courtyard of the king, everyone was invited. Chur karpas tchelas achuz bechavlei boats argaman al glilei kesef amudei shesh mitot zahav v'chesef aritzpat bahat v'shesh v'dar v'socharet. And he brought all of these beautiful tapestries, and so that people would be just in total awe of what he had. V'ashkot b'klei zahav בכלי זהב וכלים, מכלים שונים, ויין למלכות, רב כדת המלך, and he brought them that gold, below zot, ella, v'kelim, v'kelim shonim, the different types. Everyone was able to have whatever type of cup they wanted, in a way that they were able to drink whatever they wanted, and so they didn't have to rely on anybody else. The Malbim says, and this shows how many kelim he actually had. He had every single type. He had enough cups for an entire city. That's a lot of cups. Below Tomar shayu kelim maspikim ba'avor shelo yain harbe. Yain was the wine was plentiful and it was delicious. והשתייה כדעת אין אונס פסוק כי כן ייסד המלך על כל רב ביתו לעשות כרצון איש ואיש. He made sure that everyone felt that they were getting exactly what they wanted, that he was the person that was going to give them whatever they needed. גם ושתי המלכה עשתה משתה נשים בית המלכות אשר למלך אחשוורוש. But the Malbim points out over here that, first of all, it says Vashti HaMalka and not HaMalka Vashti, because he wanted to show that she is only the queen because of him. Again, trying to distort the history. And it was only for the women. It was not for any of the officials or the rest of the nation. And this is why it was in the Beit HaMalchut Asher L'Melech Achashverosh. It was in his palace that he, again, was in control of it, even though it was not his party specifically. And the seventh day he had quite a lot to drink. Asher Amar L'Humatam Bista Charvona Bikta V'Avagta Zeta V'Charkas Shivat Hasarisim Hamishartim Et Pnei HaMelech Achashverosh Lavi Et Vashti HaMalka L'Pnei HaMelech Beketer HaMelech. So this is on the seventh day. He had already had quite a bit to drink, and he decided that it was time to bring Lavi, the next pasuk, Vashti HaMalka L'Pnei HaMelech Beketer HaMalchut, with the crown of the king. And this is what the Malbim says, that he commanded her, Lavi, Maroshi Aviu Bal Korcha. That was as if he's bringing her like one of like any other maidservant that he had, and he wanted to make sure that everyone knew that Vashti HaMalka and not Hamalka Vashti. Right? This is another way that he was trying to flex his muscles. And why did he do that? And he wanted to say that the only reason why she's queen is because she is gorgeous and she is beautiful, and not because she is anything of herself. Hamalka Vashti. Malbim points out that it's actually that Vashti is, no, I'm the queen, and I'm not coming. I'm not coming because you said I'm going to come. Asher biyad sarisim, and certainly not through these clowns of sarisim. Her words, I think, not mine. Okay? And we wanted to say that there was two. And the king was very angry, and his anger burned up inside him. The Malbim says there's two different words over here. There's ketzef and chema. And the difference is that ketzef is something that's external. He was visibly livid, angry, maybe raising his voice, throwing things, yelling, I don't know. But there's also the chema. There's the anger inside. And the anger inside is that he's thinking, I gotta do something because Vashti might ruin my whole plan by not going along with it. She might prove to everyone that it's actually from her family that I got that side of the kingdom and not my own. So he said to the people that the chachamim, they're chachamim, but they're also yodea itim. They're also people that know the times. He wanted dat v'din. So it was somebody that also knew the history, that understood what he's trying to do. These are his closest advisors, but they also would understand how people would react to them. And he said, Kol Yodei Dat V'Din, he wanted to be totally covered, both from religious perspective, but also from a judicial perspective, that whatever he's going to decide to do right now will quash Vashti's ambition and will ensure that he is able to reach his goal of absolute rule and dominance. And that everyone is going to accept it. V'akarove love karshana sheitar admata tarshish mar pasuk yudalid meres marsana memuchan shivat sarei parasim adai ro'ei pnei hamelech hayoshvim rishona b'malchut. So these are the people that v'akarove love, the people that are close to him, and they gave the names, and then also the 7 parasim sarei parasim adai ro'ei pnei hamelech. They see the king's face, and that is what they're going to base their next piece of advice on. So they said this is not a king thing, this is a husband and wife thing. And they're close to him. He wanted to keep this very close and tight. So that's why he chose only the 7 people that know the times, that are Yoshim Rishon Melech, that they sat a long time in the king's palace. These were long time, I guess you could say, employees. I'm not sure what the word. Right? And so it said, the pasuk tedvav, kedat ma lasot b'malka Vashti al asher lo asta et ma'amar hamelech Achashverosh biyad hasarisim. And they wanted to know what should be done. Kedat, kvar katavnu. Shaya migamato shishpetu al yedi hadat ha-misori. Sha'al pi תצא זכאי בדינה, ולמען לא ידונו אותו כהדיוט המורד במלך, שבזה אין מועיל טענה זאת. אמר במלכה Vashti. So they said, what are we going to do with Hamalka Vashti? We want to make sure that this fact that she's the queen is not going to make some sort of uproar, or that people are going to support her and not him. Okay? So who comes to tell us things? Vayomer Memuchan Lifnei HaMelech Vasarim Lo Al HaMelech Levado Avta Vashti HaMalka. He's like, hold on, let's reframe this. If it's just you against the king, husband against wife, then we might have a problem. But if we say it is actually not only a king problem, but it's an everyone problem, and these days women didn't have as much of a strong voice. Some people might say no, they don't, but for sure then. You got to get all of the powerful people, the influential people, the senators. You have to say that it's every Medina. It's not just Shushan. It's not just a king thing. It's an entire world problem. This is what Memuchan brings up to him, that it's also all of the nations. בעליהן בעיניהן באמרם המלך אחשוורוש אמר להביא את ושתי המלכה לפניו ולא בא. Because when I say that, it is כי יצא דבר מלכות על כל נשים and all the women. You want to sort of remove it from Vashti and say this is a woman problem, that they are not going to, they're going to follow her lead, and they will not ever listen to their husbands. He wanted to make sure that they understood that there was the king that brought. The mom says 3 things. First of all, the king, the fact that he was a king is why he was going to bring Amar להביא את ושתי המלכה, שהיא אינו מלכה מצד עצמה, אלא מצדו. That is, he was the reason why Vashti is the queen. And the third thing is, שמע רק להביא לפניו שהוא דבר קטן ומכל מקום לא בא. He just wanted to do a small thing and she still didn't come. וזה יחדלו אנשים לשמוע לבעליהם, והמעשה, למשל שניהם, וזה נוגע לכל האומרים, that's what's going to happen. It's this small thing, he didn't even ask for so much and she still said no, and that is what is going to bother them. והיום הזה תאמרנה. So Memuchan said that this is going to be a problem for כי יצא דבר מלכות על כל נשים להבזות בעליהם בעיניהם, ואמרם המלך אחשוורוש אמר להביא את ושתי מלכה ולא בא, if the queen didn't come, then to the king, and you're not the king, then I'm not coming either. Vayom hazeh, on that day, hayom hazeh ata. Now, Tomarna sarot parasim adai asher shemu adavar malach l'chol sarei hamelach u'kedai b'zion v'ketzef. He got the senators. They bought it. They bought his reframing, and they wanted to make sure that they didn't get disgraced or upset. Ki al hamelach tov yotzei davar malchut milefanav v'yikatev b'datei parasim adai v'lo yavar asher tavo vashti lefnei hamelach u'malchuto yitin hamelech l'rota hatova mimena. Okay, so this is what they said, this is a good idea. We're very happy about this. But what this actually did was it gave him even more power. It allowed him to have this malchut bilti mugbelet, this dictatorship, get a little stronger. V'nishma pitgam, pasuk chaf. המלך אשר יעשה בכל מלכותו כי רבה היא וכל נשים ייתנו יקר לבעליהם למגדול ועד קטן. It's not going to make a difference what kind of person you are. If you're the man of the house, your wife is going to have to do what you say, as if you are sort of the king of the house. ויטב הדבר בעיני המלך והשרים seemed like a pretty good idea to them. ויעש המלך כדבר ממוכן, and he did exactly what Memuchan said. וישלח ספרים אל כל מדינות המלך, אל מדינה ככתבה, ואל עם ועם כלשונם, להיות כל איש שורר בביתו ומדבר כלשון עמו. And he said, everybody, according to whatever language, so that everybody would understand, there would be no there would be no way to say, I didn't get it, because that they were going to have to follow this rule by the king. And the Malbim says, that Gadol Malchuto Shemalach Al Chavta Medinot. Again, he wanted to show that the king had 127 Medinot. He controlled them. He took over them in a very small time. And they all became rich from this party. All these things he's doing, he's showing his strength, he's giving them the party, he's coming up with these creative laws. He loved Vashti all the way until her death. He's like this big martyr that even though he loves his wife, he was doing this for them, so that he would say not only for them, he would say for all households. And this is what the Malbim says was so brilliant about the way that Achashverosh starts. That is the end of Perek Aleph from Megillat Esther with the Perek Malbim. Thanks for agreeing with me.